Hello there. This episode, our guest is a true multi-hyphenate of the entertainment and creative industries. With over 20 years' experience as a dancer and choreographer, their career has taken them around the world and back. And in more recent years, they've branched out into creative producing and have become one of the most sought-after recruitment and casting directors in the live entertainment and theatre world. But these are the headlines, as we like to say, and it's the bits in between that we're going to dive into today. He's fresh out of rehearsals on a project that we've actually been working on together. Today is going to be a good one. I'm Shep, and today we're getting notes from Graeme Pickering. Let's do it. Okay. Hello there. Welcome to Getting Notes from Graeme Pickering. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you.
You've done this kind of thing before. You're an old hand at this, right? So this is comfort zone stuff for you.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat and yeah.
Okay. Well, do let it show. We always kick off, Graeme, with common ground. So how we know each other. And actually, I haven't known you directly or in person for very long. Mm-hmm. We kind of connected, I think, through social media a couple of months ago or last year, maybe.
Last year, yeah.
When I'd seen an article that you'd written in The Stage, which we'll come back to. But known of you for a long time and reputation. And recently we've had the chance to work together, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So, yeah, really looking forward today to diving into your career. You are, as I mentioned in the intro, like a multi-hyphenate. You've got your fingers in a lot of pies and strings on different bows. So a lot to dive into that I think is going to be really useful for our listeners. But I'd like to kick off first with early days. So what was your introduction into entertainment and dancing? Young Graeme, take me back.
Young Graeme. Okay, so I actually started as a child with music before dance. So it was a good outlet for me. My mum saw I had rhythm and I liked it. So she was like, oh, I'll get some piano lessons. And I did piano and enjoyed doing that. And then I learned like the clarinet and did loads of musical things like that. And then I would do like local amateur dramatics, and the school musical and things like that. And then as time went on, I had teachers that said, you need more formal training with dance. You've got something about you, and I think you need some more than this, basically. So that's how that started. So I'd started dance later. Didn't start like at 4 years old going to ballet or anything like that. But I think a lot of boys of my generation did start later. It wasn't something you necessarily sent boys to dance as often as you would for girls, where now there's a lot more opportunity for, young boys to go and dance, and it's seen in a different way, which is amazing. Yeah.
Well, let's talk more about that in a little while, because it certainly has changed in that respect. But I'm interested there about that transition from music to dance. Did being musical already help with dance? I tell you what it reminded me of when you said it is I saw somebody talking about Fred Astaire, and they said because he was such a great dancer, it made him a better singer because there was a musicality, a movement in the way that he sang that maybe somebody who just sang might not have. But yeah, so what was that transition?
100%. First, you understand the structure of music, which is so important, which also marries against the structure of a dance, and they say 4 lots of 8, really that's 8 bars of 4/4, and understanding that not only helps you as a dancer, but it also then helps you as a creative later down the line. You're going to be collaborating with, directors, different people in a team, and they are going to necessarily be talking in different language to what a dancer talks in 5, 6, 7, 8, but that's like the only department that talks like that. Everyone else talks in bars and 4s. So I think having knowledge of music is so important, and it also gives you that musicality that you need. You understand what you need to bring out within your movement and your creativity. So I think all of the disciplines in the work we do, I think, are so important that you at least train in them and are exposed to them, because it helps elevate the work that you're doing. And like I said about the collaboration between the departments, if you understand what they do, you're instantly going to be ahead of the game and be able to create much quicker and much better product.
Well, and like you say, you've got an understanding of the different angles from which other creatives are coming to the same piece.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a professional performer, and when did that start to inform your academic choices, maybe, or early life choices?
I was quite academic at school, so I always
really hard to believe. Having got to know you a little bit.
So I was always enjoying doing theatre and would love to explore it, but often a lot of my school teachers would say, "Oh, you should do maths, or you should do all the things I was excelling in."
Yeah.
And I think from a parent point of view, it's that thing of, oh well, my parents aren't theatrical at all, so they love going to the theatre and they love all things like that, but they haven't got the experience of what you necessarily need. So they did super support me, and I went on to do that. But I think that it's sometimes what you know is more comforting. If you can, if your child's saying, "Oh, I'd like to be a teacher," and you have come from that background, then you're going to think, well, it's a secure job. It's, it follows the A to Z of life kind of situation. But I always had that interest in doing it. So once I'd got to, that 15, 16, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give this a go. If it doesn't work out, there's other things to fall back on. I still did do academic work alongside it. And then as soon as I went off, then academic went out the window, and I was just focusing on, on myself and on my journey with it. Yeah. But I think it is important to explore an itch you might have. I think it's really important. Like, you only get one life, and you never know where it's going to lead you. And I think if you've got a passion and you've got something that's really special to you and unique to you, just embrace it and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you'll be able to find something else. That is about growth.
Yeah, and I think increasingly it's likely that people will be working into their 60s. Yeah. So there's enough time for you to have a couple of careers. The world has changed, certainly since our parents' generation, where maybe you did one job for life. Like, that's not the world we live in. No. So what was the first life choice that you made in terms of like an academic route that connected with performance? Would it have been your college choice or after college? Or?
Yeah, like when I was doing my GCSEs, I chose to do things like drama or music, things like that. I chose those which, they had that outlet of being practical, but they also had an academic side to them, and they were qualifications. And then when I'd obviously done really well with those, and it was like, okay, well, let's go on the next step with that. And explored further and further and further with that. And I think it's quite interesting seeing the world today of how the training system for, say, something like musical theatre or dance has changed. It's actually gone more academic, where they're now all doing like the degree course, where back in my time we were doing more of a diploma course, which was more practical than anything. And yes, those degrees are still very practical, but they do have a massive weight on the academic side, which, that's another conversation. But I think I enjoyed being able to use my academic side of things as well. And I think that's important as I've got later in my career, because there's so much networking that needs to be done. Being able to communicate is so important. If you ever have to manage budgets or anything like that, that is a very academic thing to do. So I think if you have those skills alongside your work, it's really important.
Yeah, and it can be hard to pick some of that stuff up later in your career. Yeah. And you're definitely a good example of that. Somebody who's been a very accomplished performer and in the physical sense of the industry, but also has built up a business mind that you now take advantage of. So where did you go then? Where was your?
So I went to Liverpool, and I trained at LIPA, Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts.
I remember we discussed this, and so this must have been when LIPA was new, really, fairly new.
It was in its first. I want to say it celebrated 10 years the year before I went.
Oh, okay, right.
So it wasn't as early as
decade,
that.
Right.
And then after that, I went to Liverpool Theatre School and specialised more in musical theatre, because I was doing more of a dance course there, which I really enjoyed, and I got so much from it, and it was great. But I also realised my style of dance, I wanted to do something more theatrical, more that route, and explore other avenues. Like I was saying about having other disciplines and understanding other things, like the acting, the singing. It's important to understand those, even if you don't necessarily work in those areas. I think it's important to have those skills and understanding of it. And Liverpool Theatre School give me that.
At that higher education level, how different can the focus or stylistic approach to dance be from college to college or school to school? Is that identity and focus, does it vary greatly from place to place, institute to institute?
I think when I was going to college, it really did. I think every school had their identity very much, and if you wanted to be more of like theatrical in like a burlesque style show or something, you'd go to maybe this school. If you were more a singer and you wanted to be in a book musical that was more legit, you'd maybe go to this school. That is still apparent in areas, but I do think there is more fusion between the genres and styles as the schools have got larger.
Right.
Like they're much bigger in their intake. They've got more courses, and I think that's partly fusing what the identity of those schools necessarily is, because they kind of do everything, which is a great thing to have. And it's great to have so many types of people under one roof, and there's so many different things you explore. However, for being more specialist in something, it's kind of tricky to find where you want to go now. I always put myself in the shoes of somebody 16, 17, 18, looking for their training. What would I have chosen today? Like I chose my school on one. I liked the building where I went, and I enjoyed the city. But the big thing was the alumni who had come through that system.
Sure.
And LIP is a really good example of that. Some absolutely huge pioneers and leaders of our industry today that are doing amazing things have been to that school, and they were names that were told to me when I was applying there, and that was inspiring. And I thought, well, I want to be on that route. And they were very creative, and the same with the work I did at Liverpool Theatre School. I also followed that. It's interesting now, it's not always that why people choose to go. They choose to go because of the spectacle of maybe social media or a dance convention or something where they've really felt inspired by that piece they've seen. But it does then kind of change the identity of some of those schools, because not everyone necessarily is going because of what the school has produced. They're going more because of the profile of what that school has.
So I think that's really useful. And in education in general, and we've spoken about it a lot already in these interviews, but there's so many choices that are put on people really early in their life when you know so little about yourself and what you want to do. But I guess because there are so many different genres of dance and styles and techniques and methodology and how you approach, maybe it is a little bit different, I think. When would you suggest that somebody needs to start specializing as a dancer? If professional dance is a career they want to go into, I guess they might already have a stylistic preference, but in terms of their training and their practice, when do you think somebody ideally has to start committing to and specializing?
It's really tricky to give an exact time, and I think everyone's journey is different. I think if you know exactly what you want to do and you have mastered that, you should explore doing that. So that could be earlier for you. But there is so much access to open classes, other styles of things that you can access, like going into London and meeting new creatives that are doing new classes, and you can alter your casting bracket and your skill set. So I think that's a real open-ended question where it's not got a definite, you need to decide by the time you're 18 or by the time you're 25. It's not as simple as that. It's not black and white.
You're right. And it was black and white when we trained. It was a different world. Whereas I think what you've just said is really significant, and you have recent experience of this through COVID as well, but the digital resources that are available to people now to self-educate or to kind of take on extra learning outside of your curriculum or institute is it's phenomenal. So there are those resources, I guess.
But it's also about on your path, you might be introduced to new things that you wouldn't necessarily have thought you were going to do, that then changes your path slightly. That's like me. Like some of the work I do now, if you'd asked me at, say, 18, I would never have even thought I'd be doing that. I wouldn't necessarily have said that's what I want to do. It's just, we'll get on to talking about networking and stuff later, but I think you really must work on growing those relationships with people, because you never know where those relationships will take you, and they might slightly change what your goal was initially, but actually you prefer the new goal that you're on.
It kind of related to networking and to studying in an academic institute. The economy is tough for people, in all areas, and sometimes I think weighing up whether to go through an academic route or whether to try another route and not investing all the time and money into that. There's pros and cons in either direction, but I think the the networking thing is critical. And my family weren't like, there was nobody in my family really from an entertainment or arts background, but they were very, very supportive and as helpful as they possibly could have been. And my mum, from a very early age, kind of drilled into me, if you want to get work, you've got to network. And it was such a golden nugget. And I don't know, maybe she'd asked somebody else, she'd got it from somewhere, but it really made a difference in my early career. And one of the pros that I would always say for studying in an academic institute is the facilities, the resources, but the people you're surrounded by and the unexpected opportunities or introductions that might come from that. Where I think if you do self-teach in silo or more remotely, you're not exposed to that. And you said it a moment ago, I think it's, you don't know who you might meet or who might change the course, of your path in an unexpected way. That's
you need to just work and meet new people and go to new things. Like, you never know where them opportunities are going to lead. Like, we're in an industry that definitely is relationship driven. Yes, your talent's important, yes, your skill set's important, but your relationships are the most important. People are going to want to work with people they like, and they'll also want to think of you as well. Like, say there's a new project and they need X, Y, and Z, they'll think, oh, we need a dancer like them, we need a creative like them, we need someone that's really good at managing the production, and that person just springs to mind. Then relationships create that to happen.
And it's what gets, when I interviewed James MacGyver, who we both know and are fond of and respect, I described him as being a conversation ender. He's one of those names around the table that when you say who are we thinking for costume, somebody says James MacGyver and you go, great, next, who are we thinking for this? And so much of our industry is based on those conversations around tables that happen quickly, and it's not the name being said, it's how people react after the name's being said. And it's all relationships, like you say. So thinking back to when you were training at that time, what were your interests and inspirations as a performer? What had you seen that you thought, yeah, that's what I want to do? Or who was out there that excited you as a young creative and performer?
I loved going to see a really good musical show. At that age, I was just wowed. And back then, they used to also have sometimes huge casts and spectacle sets and things like that. And it was before everything went digital and LED, which I think there's some really good work in that area now. But back then, they actually physically made things. So if they needed, say, a really good backdrop, it was physically made, and I was always so impressed, like going, and it felt magic seeing all of that, and it made me have a buzz to be a part of something like that.
When you're talking like this, what do you envisage, and are there any productions that you think of or that stand out in your memory?
I remember seeing a production of 42nd Street years ago, and I remember just being wowed by all of them being so unified in their tapping and the spectacle of tapping down the steps and all of that. And I know, that's all the sparkliness of theatre, but that did inspire me. It made me excited. It made me want to do this industry. And I think it's important to always be inspired. And I still do that now. If I have a moment where I feel a little bit uninspired, I go and see things like that, which inspired me. I used to also love, like, pop stars, the production of that, particularly that MTV era, that Britney Spears era and all that type of thing. I was obsessed with seeing how dance had then been collaborated with the music, and they created these films basically for their music videos, like only 4 minutes long, but they had so much dancing in them, and they had so much theatrical elements, within what was pop. And that, again, really inspired me and made me so excited. Yes, I haven't worked as a pop star, and I didn't want to be a pop star, but the production of what was created around that artist was so exciting to me. And that was, huge inspiration for me while training.
So that's on the big stage at the screen then. What about on a personal level? At that stage in your life, did you have any kind of mentors or people in a personal way that had been a particular influence on you or your development? Yeah,
in a young age, I had a drama teacher who, she was a legend. She was so passionate about it. And looking back now, like, she always gave over 100% to us. And I think sometimes young students don't get that, really. And when you look back, you're like, God, she was just breathing, sleeping drama and wanted the best for us. And we were in a small group of us, and quite a few of us went off and did things and did take it further. And I would say she is someone that I really need to thank for pushing me into dance. Yes, she was my drama teacher, but she really saw when we were doing, say, musicals, whatever it might be, my ability and my resilience to working in, you know, an industry that's so fast paced, and she was like, you really should do this. It's an industry that you should explore. And she really was a deciding factor to push me to do that. I had a music teacher that taught me piano, who's amazing. She's in her 90s now. But again, she was so passionate about me growing and using music to not only help me achieve my dreams, but also like help me as a person as well, and as an outlet for me. And I really am so thankful of that, you know.
It's incredible, isn't it, the difference that people can make. And I think we probably grew up in similar kind of areas, really, in terms of culture and local economy and opportunities. And I think it is right that when people express an interest of going into the arts or creative industries, that they are warned against it, or that the realities and the home truths, you know, they are made aware of early doors. Because I feel like that's almost your first test. And if you're not going to be able to handle that, then it's not the career for you. But it can also be a passport for people, as it's been for both of us, quite literally, like the things that we've gotten to do and the places that we've gone to see. And yeah, I would never have pursued it if I'd not had, similar to what you've described, kind of those instrumental people at a very young age of like, you can do this if you work hard, if you train, and if you pursue this. Like you can do this. Good. Yeah. Well, you should go and thank these people.
I will. And I also think that, like you touched on it there, my work has not only become my work, like you say, it's allowed me to travel. It's allowed me to meet so many people. Like our networks are so big and such interesting people from all over the world, different nationalities. I think there's so much that comes from this industry more than just the work. Like I think it makes you a better human because you meet more and more cultures, you meet more and more types of people, you travel. Listen, I'm so thankful that I chose to do this, because maybe I wouldn't necessarily have got those opportunities if I'd done a different industry.
So absolutely, and we'll talk more about that and the work that you've done specifically that's taken you around the world. You graduate. Excuse me, that's my tummy rumbling. We'll leave that in. What was the first professional engagement post studies? Did you go straight into something, or was there a gap, or what was that like?
I within a couple of months of me graduating, I'd found professional work. I followed a path that a lot of performers would do, where I worked on a cruise ship straight away. I did a lot of corporate gig kind of things. I did a tour around the UK, lots of things like that. I was all about gathering experiences.
Did you have an agent straight away, or was this off your own bat?
I did have an agent straight away, and I worked with them for a period of time. I think having an agent was helpful in some ways, but I also think even now you need to be proactive in yourself. I think that's a little myth that happens, that people sometimes get an agent and they think, oh, okay, well, over to you, you do that for me. And yeah, they are going to be working for you, but it's not going to come to light if you are just sitting waiting for the phone to ring. You have to put that work in as well and build your networks, and and your agent is going to help you along that way, but only so I did that, and then it just started. I started getting more and more opportunities to go to auditions, or just different gigs and different jobs.
What was the perception, your perception, or generally, of crews at that time when you went into it? Because that as a market and an industry for performers has evolved greatly. I think back to when I graduated, there was a perception of crews or cruise work. Now it's like we see shows transferring from Broadway and the West End direct onto theatres and back again, sometimes simultaneously. The calibre of artists is interchangeable between two. So what was it like back then for you, and what was that working experience like?
I was always so excited to do something like that. That was always on my card of things I wanted to explore. One big reason was I knew they had big productions on board, and the second big one was to travel. I was like, if I can get paid to travel, but also do my job, then that's a big tick. So I had friends that had gone and done cruises and said they'd really enjoyed it.
Okay.
So that had, inspired me to say, well, I want to explore this avenue. And I had some great times, and some of the productions I was involved with, even back then, were very good. Like they weren't basic at all.
Yeah.
But I do remember certain agents would say things like, if you want to get work in London, you maybe need to remove that off your CV. Like, it's a good experience you had, but maybe take that off, because back in them days, there was that perception about them in a certain way.
But that's surely different now.
It really is. And I think, maybe it does exist somewhere with people maybe that haven't been exposed to knowing what's going on. But, particularly some of these really large lines and these big companies, they are spending a fortune on their entertainment. And as a result, it's just elevated what they can do. The infrastructures of the ships is allowing them to produce, technology and effects that you are struggling to get on land, and then with that, more and more creatives that are, working on huge products, whether that be in theatre or commercial television work, they are wanting to create because they've got this infrastructure and it's allowing them to bring their ideas to life. They are wanting to create. So then again, it's gone up another level with the creativity. And it just, as time's going on, the guests also are wanting to see more. They're wanting to see something better, something bigger. There's huge hubs of the world, Las Vegas, New York, London, that are producing amazing work. So if we're going to create a holiday for someone that needs to be good, the entertainment needs to also match it / go above and beyond. And that's what the mindset has been. And as a result now, I would hand on heart say, all performers should be looking at exploring that at some point in their career, because I think you learn so much from it, and the product it's amazing everywhere you go.
There's such great opportunities to be exposed to, like you say, great products, great people, to gain discipline and knowledge. But I think also off stage, and you referred to it, the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to be exposed to different people, different cultures, like the variety of incredible professionals that work on like these kind of floating cities. And I think if you are young and at the start of your career and you have that opportunity, it's, even if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, I think it's such a great opportunity. So how long were you kind of back and forth going out to sea? And that was quite a chunk of your career, right?
Cruises, I'd say it was over like a 5-year period. I did multiple contracts for multiple different lines. And I really enjoyed it. And like you talked about the travel, I was so grateful to do a world cruise in one of my contracts. So we went from Southampton to Australia and back.
Wow.
Now, a lot of them places, still to this day, I would not have been to if it wasn't for that. And I think that's really special to have added that as well. And I learned so much within myself, like as a performer. Like, you are doing, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 shows, whatever that ship needs you to do. They're all, say, 45 minutes to an hour, all different content, all different genres. It's a lot. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to diversify your performance quality, to give the guests something new every night. And I think that makes you a stronger performer and actually an asset for other people later down the line to work with as well, because they know you're going to be able to match that challenge of having to learn lots of material very quickly, or be able to bounce across different styles. And
What was it like from a personal perspective? What did you learn about yourself or gain from the experience?
From a personal perspective, it was amazing to meet so many different cultures, so many different people in so many different areas of work as well. So not only within our industry of like learning about people that are backstage, people that are management, like, all those different roles, also then learning people. It's a floating hotel. So you're learning people, working with people that work for shore excursion, with people that are, housekeeping, food and beverage. There is so much that you gain from working with different cultures and different styles of people in different occupations. And I think that made me a better human as well,
Yeah. I really enjoyed as well the time with people, like just meeting so many fascinating people as well, and hearing their life stories, and actually, particularly if you do like longer contracts, sometimes that can be what gets you through as well. You know, you make great friends, but like you see them every day. So actually, sometimes those guests that come and go, you know, might reoccur, you know, over the years that you do it. Yeah, there's some really great relationships and people you can meet there as well.
100%.
So what about transitioning out of that then? After your kind of cruise era at sea, when did you make that transition back to land-based work, and what did that look like?
I wanted to be land-based for multiple reasons. Even when I went to college, I always had a passion to do something creative in the end. That was always part of it. I loved performing and I was inspired by all those shows we've spoken about, but I also loved getting on my feet and creating movement or creating ideas, and you know, and I think that's something that was always an itch that I wanted to scratch. But I knew by being away a lot, it was going to be difficult for me to necessarily explore those areas and build up networks of people that maybe could help me in that area and offer opportunities. And I was also just getting that itch of, you know, as a certain age where I wanted to, like, sounds really silly, but to have like a nice space to live where I decorated it and I had my own bedroom that was nice, you know, and just things that actually don't mean anything, but they did at the time to me. And and that was a little itch to push me off to go and do other things. And I felt like I'd explored a lot. I'd worked for like 4 different lines. I'd worked with some great choreographers and creatives. I'd seen a lot of ports, like I said, to the world cruise. I felt like I'd worked in good shows and I wanted to do other things now too.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, I'll take the leap of faith. And I think it's always good to do that. And if you've had a good reputation and left a good respect to the company, you'll always be thought of if, for example, you want to go back. I think you always want to leave things on good terms. And I did. And so that's why I felt confident that, you know what, if I don't like living on land and I want to go away again,
it'll be there.
I can.
So what age were you at that time then? Were you still kind of you're in your prime now, of course, but like, were you still in your dancing prime when you came?
Yeah, I'd say I was about 26, 27.
Okay, right.
Yeah, mid 20s, I'd say.
So then, what did you take to doing in the UK then? What did you transition into?
I was dancing here. I was doing like shows here, and you know, like I was talking about earlier, any opportunities. So if there was, say, even if it was like a gig, it was like, you know, a 2-day gig and we just needed to learn on one day, perform the next, I was doing it. It was like, you know, a tour, it was a panto, it was whatever. I was doing whatever was there because I just wanted to work, but I also wanted to start laying the foundations to try and build and grow into more of a creative world. So that is what I was doing in that time. And I think actually it was such a growth time because I was doing a lot of shorter based contracts as well. So I was meeting more and more people. You know, I was only with them for 2 days, but we got on really well and we started that relationship. And some of those relationships are people I work with now, like, you know, 12, 13 years later. But that's what I was doing in that interim period.
So then, how did you start transitioning into this more creative role? You've been delivering, I guess, other people's product and concepts for a long time, and maybe had some degree of influence. But you've got this itch to start creating and making and leading the process yourself.
Yeah.
So how did you begin on that route, or what was your in there?
I wasn't shy to share what I wanted to do. I think if people don't know you want to do that, how are they going to ever think about you for that? Like, you know,
absolutely.
You know, if you told me you wanted to do something now, I'd think, oh, well, later down the line, someone might say, we're looking for someone like this.
It's in your mind.
It's in your mind. So I was, you know, maybe reintroducing myself to people that I knew, or trying to build new connections, like reaching out to people. This is who I am. This is what I'd like to do. These are my skills, and this is my material and what I do. I would love to have a chat with you. Some of those things came to life. Some of them never got a reply, and that's okay because that's what it's like. But I
think really important to emphasize, that is what it's like.
That's what it's like.
Like if you don't like rejection or not being responded to immediately, or people saying this is definitely happening, it's all, you know, and then suddenly it doesn't, not the industry for you. I think you mentioned earlier about resilience. I think when you're in that process, particularly at the beginning, that is really important.
It's so important. And I remember you were asking about mentors and people that have helped you. Someone I worked with much later down the line in a creative role who who I really respect and love to pieces, they once said to me, they went by the philosophy of no answer is an answer.
Yeah.
And that really resonates with me. I don't always agree with that, but it helped me understand a lot that, okay, the answer is it's not. It doesn't mean the answer is no. The answer might be it's a not right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that helped me understand when someone's not replying to me, it doesn't mean they don't like you or whatever. It just means it's not the right time for that. So, yeah, to build and move on, I was reaching out to people, speaking to as many people as possible, and just being persistent, but in a really professional, non-intrusive way. I always try and tell, if I have any students, about inspire them to do that. But I always say, be persistent, but not a nuisance. There's a fine line of that. You don't want to be like, you're messaging someone all the time and they think, oh God, it's not her again, you know, or something like that. But you also don't want to just never, ever do any more than that initial first message, because like we said, it might not be the right time, but it is in 6 months, 1 year, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it there, but I think timing is everything. And sometimes you're just not the right person for the fit, and your face doesn't fit in that moment, and it can be completely beyond your control, variables that you have no influence over, and then maybe 3 months later the world turns a little bit and suddenly you are the person. It's your time to shine. And what that's taught me, I think, a little bit is that what you say about the balance between being persistent and a nuisance, I think is really important, because people are busy. They don't have a lot of time. They don't need unnecessary, hassle from people. But I think sometimes making yourself the target and being mindful of how you're presenting yourself, what you're putting out there, how you're kind of promoting, networking yourself, presenting yourself day to day, is really important, because you also never know who's looking at you or when they're looking at you, or just checking in to monitor what you're doing. Yeah. So I think sometimes we can be really conscious of thinking, oh, that's the target, that's what I'm aiming for. And actually, I think it's equally important to remember that you are a target, and you can make yourself a target and be talking about what you want to do, present yourself in a certain way.
I think you also need to be successful in this industry. For me, you have to be someone that's happy to wait and not rush everything. And I know that's so hard because it's human nature. We all want it to be now, and we want all the glory within a day, and I think it's not the reality. And I think if you can be someone that can sit it out and wait for those opportunities, obviously making it work for you, but be able to do that, you are going to be more successful. Like, people aren't necessarily they're not booking you because they don't like you. They're not booking you because it's not the right timing. Yeah. If you're good at what you do and you can offer something to those people, then it's about waiting for the right project to come in to be a part of that collaboration.
Yeah. Out of interest, what's the toughest wait that you've ever had? Or has there ever been a period or a dry spell that's really tested you, where you've thought, oh, I might need to go and do something else. I can't handle this maybe anymore. Or have you not had that maybe?
I've never had I want to step away and not do it, because I've always been determined and I love it and it's my passion. I think I'm always waiting, even when I'm really busy. There's always people asking, hey, Graeme, can you do a proposal for this? Or can you send us, a breakdown of what you do, whatever. And then you don't hear for a while. And you think to yourself, sometimes I've done that multiple times in a week, and you think, oh God, it's just lots of waiting. But that's the nature of the beast, and that's what it's like. And I think you just have to get good at that. And I will be honest, younger Graeme wasn't as good as that. I look back and I would want the answer, and we all want the answer in life straight away, but I am really good at managing that now and managing my expectations.
Well, you're so much older. So much older. I wonder, connected to that as well, and you and I have spoken about this a few times, the importance and the benefits of diversifying, and maybe having a couple of plates spinning or fingers in different pies. How have you found that to build that portfolio and to build that range of things? Yeah. And how easy is it to manage that? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, but before I answer that, I think it's interesting because some of my teachers that I had, some of them would say, whatever you want to do, you have to put 100% everything into that and only focus on that one end goal.
Because anything you put into plan B, you're taking away from your approach to plan A.
Which the part of me agrees with. And other people I met along the way would say, you should diversify as much as you do. I sit somewhere in the middle of that where I do agree, if you want to get good at something or really great at that, you can't just be willy-nilly going, oh, I'm going to do that for a little bit and then something else. You're not allowing the momentum of what you're doing to grow and grow and grow. And you need people to, like from our line of work, you need people to associate you with what you are offering. So, you can't go, oh, well, I'm doing this. However, the other side of it, which is someone like myself, my work rolled because I was working because it was my hobby. I was doing it because I loved it. And I wasn't doing it necessarily to make any money. I wasn't doing it for anything. I was just doing it because I loved it. Now, that within the opportunities I was being given a younger stage of my career was springboarding me to other things. So I'd be working for people and they'd say, oh, can you just jump in and help with that? And they'd see straight away, wow, you've got a great skill set for doing that. One thing being organized. Anyone that knows me, anyone listening to this that knows me, be like, yeah, Graeme's like the most organized person. I just am. It's a quality.
If you do know Graeme and you don't agree with that, please comment. And we'd love to see you challenge that.
But I am. I know I am.
You are.
So that allowed...
I know I am.
But that allowed me to do other things. But it also allowed me to be able to do different styles of work because I was organized in myself as well.
Yeah.
I'm able to bounce between different clients or bounce between different roles because I am making sure I have organized myself, that I have the time to give each project the weight it needs.
I'm going to chip in there and say as well that I think what's significant is, and you alluded to it earlier on, but is having a greater appreciation of the other facets of what's going on around you. Mm-hmm. And I always looking at dancers. I think a good dancer knows exactly what they're doing. A great dancer knows exactly what they're doing and what everybody around them is doing. Yeah. And I think in a broader sense, between the different disciplines that come together to put on a show or in production or live events or entertainment, people who develop an understanding of what the techs are doing, how they're trying to light it, the sound levels, how we're being choreographed, how it's been directed, staged, props, scenery, music, the studio content, all those nuances that come together and have been reverse engineered to that point before. When you understand those and the connectivity and interdependence of them, you have so much more to offer the process rather than somebody who is just a singular cog in that thing. So I think that's also different because there are. Sometimes you own the entire process. Sometimes you're just a small part of the process, or sometimes people need a link between certain things. And having worked with you and knowing you a little bit now, you do absolutely have that, and you have that broader knowledge and understanding, which I think makes you more diverse.
Yeah.
And I think when you do have those wait periods or those breaks in between opportunities, it's really important that you are continuing to educate yourself and to learn. I think the moment you stop doing that in our industry, it's kind of the first time you die.
Yeah.
And even on a contract or in a gig, like make sure there's a little bit of time each day where you're just pushing something a little bit new. You're just starting to tread water in an area that you know less about because it's always beneficial and it keeps your mind.
Oh, yeah, you have to always grow. And I also think the work I do, a lot of it goes hand in hand. So, working all the different fingers and different pies I've got, like my work in casting helps my work in choreography. Yes, there might be different projects, but having the eye for what is necessarily needed to create that is so important. The same as, in between all that, I go and teach and I go in and meet different students at colleges. It's important to see the talent that's coming through, the generational shift, the changes in that, learning that then I can implement what is happening within my creative work. And I think that is so important. It means you don't get left behind. And like you said, always learning. I love learning new things and having new challenges. And that's what I think makes you grow and just be better.
And you know what? I saw Stephen Colbert recently, who's just about to leave his late show in the States. I saw him talking about being inspired by Bill Hader, the SNL actor, who when he left SNL, went to go and write for South Park for a little bit, which seemed like maybe not the expected thing he might go and do. But Bill Hader just said, I wasn't sure what to do next, and I knew that I would love that, so I took it. And that, I think sometimes people are afraid to do that in our industry.
Yeah.
They're sometimes so concerned about progress, status, and how to climb the ladder, that they're afraid of doing something that they'll just love and enjoy. And being in work is success. Still doing what you do in this industry is success.
Yeah.
So I think that's important sometimes as well. Like if you're not sure what to do next, but there's an opportunity to do something you love, that's good for you.
Yeah.
Do that.
And it's about keeping going and making it a full career as well. Like, if you work out, I'm going to work for 40 years, so that's what it's going to be. And then you break that down into 10-year steps. At the moment, I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is this 10 years. But what does Graeme Pickering look like in another 10 years? Might be doing the same thing.
Old Lee Ryan. That's what he looks like.
But it's like, if you can learn and grow and do new things, then it might make your path go in a slightly different way, and not in a bad way. Just it's a new era of where you are in your career, and like from my experience over the last 20 years, it has been like that. So I am still keen to learn and grow and do that same path, because so far it's worked and it's been good. And yes, I'm doing different things, and I hope I'm still doing things I'm doing now and new things in 10, 20 years time.
Well, the industry keeps evolving, so you have to keep evolving. How do you describe to people what you do? The kind of combination of things,
I say, I tell them what I do, and I go, I wear many hats. That's why I've got a sore neck. That's always my line, because my hats are so heavy with all different things.
Solid.
But yeah, if it's someone that's to do with theatre and our industry, I'm able to be more direct and say what it is, and I'll say, I work for these people and whatever. But if it's someone that doesn't, I'll say, I work in theatre, and they say, what do you do? And I say, I'm creative. I work across different disciplines. That's the best way of saying it to someone that doesn't understand. But yeah, I love doing all different things. I love finding it hard to describe what I do, because it means I am fulfilled with so many different projects, different challenges, different things every day.
Yeah. So you've got the whole kind of creative, producing, choreography kind of side of your portfolio, but in recent years you've established yourself, I kind of said in your intro, as one of the most sought after casting and recruitment directors, somebody who sources and puts the talent into products and entertainment for people. How did you get into that? I assume maybe it was through a choreography route to begin with, was it?
Kind of, yes, it was that way. It was from building relationships and then assisting with people that needed help with casting, and and going from there. And then, like I say, my organizational skills came flying out, and casting is a lot about that. It's so important in many ways, like filing it all, sorting it all out, also making sure the day runs smoothly. It sounds like you have endless hours. Say you've got the studio 9 till 6. We have to, in that time, see everybody, get this done, find the talent. So there's that part, but it's also having that eye for it too. And it's
break that down for me a little bit then. So as an example, or pick a case study from your mind. You're going to Pineapple, say, for a casting day. What will the objective be? What are you looking for to successfully, hopefully, get from that process? How many people are coming through? What's expected of them? Kind of break the journey down a little bit.
For all different clients, it's a different journey. But let's say it's a really big, busy audition. If it's an open call, we have to see everybody in that day and organise it so it's slick and people aren't waiting around for hours and hours and hours. And if you have too many, how are you going to see them all? Well, we need to be efficient within our work to be able to get the talent through the door, to give them the time and the way of, they've come all the way to audition. We want to make sure they feel valued. Of course, and I think the end goal is that we also find talent. If it's private, there's a lot of legwork before we even start, a lot of liaising with the agents and the talent directly. And then it's making sure you can say you've got to do a dance call and you need to see them do 3 different phrases. You've got to make sure there is time at the end of the day to get together and chat about what's what we've seen, you know, and we've seen everyone do it. And that for me is a huge skill. And it's also about having the eye for talent, but also the eye to be efficient. That's another thing as well. Like, we obviously want to see as much talent as possible for any job. There is thousands of performers. It's just not possible. So you need to be able to be selective of the style of talent you need for that project. And that, for me, it is a skill. It's something that, and I know myself, I have got better at it, even in myself. And that's for singing as well, whatever it might be. You've got to get through this. So you've got to be direct with the style of people. And for me, I also learned when I went into casting how expensive auditions and casting was. As a performer, I never got that. I never thought it was expensive because I was auditioning for free, so I didn't really get the amount of money. And when you add up the studio hire, say people have got to fly in for it, or accommodation, people's wages, choreographer wages, MDs, you know, accompanists to play, directors, there's a lot of people that need to be paid for a big audition. It's expensive. And then when I'm sitting in a casting role, I go to myself, that means I need to find the right people.
Yeah,
because otherwise
that translates into a fair bit of pressure. I
yeah,
imagine. Because
then the producers paid X amount of pounds, and they got in the end, it isn't anybody. That's not really gonna shine me in a good light. But also, we've just might as well have just not done that and just wasted the money on something else. Could go out for drinks or something.
How much does your experience having auditioned inform how you work? Do you have kind of good and bad memories of your own experiences that you remain mindful of in how you curate these days?
100%. All the good things I liked about an audition, I want to implement and even heighten and elevate even more. All the things I maybe didn't like as a performer, I have tried to change. That there is fundamental ways of running an audition. At the end of the day, the job needs to get done, and the way we cast. Sounds awful to say that, like a system, but there is a system that to get through the amount of people in the time. However, being valued is so important, I think. And I would really hope anyone auditioning for me would leave feeling that they felt valued, even if it was quick.
Again, let us know in the feed. If you've had a bad experience with Graeme Pickering, reach out and let us know. We can put you in contact.
You're making me feel nervous with that.
What can you do, though, when you're operating at that pace and that volume with that pressure? What are the things that you can do to make people feel more valued and, I guess, relaxed and give their best?
I would say, one thing you'd love to say is give them time. Now, give them time is how you execute that, because there isn't endless minutes and hours in a day.
It's finite.
However, you can breathe. It's fine. That extra couple of seconds, allowing someone to do that, or extra minute, really, you'll find those minutes somewhere else. They're not going to mess up your day as long as you are transparent and helpful to someone. So that's the first thing. Another thing as well is just bringing out your personality and getting on the auditionee's level. I learned early on when I went into creative auditions that the casting team want everyone to be great. And I know that was always said, but as a performer, you don't necessarily get it, and with TV shows that are like auditions and it's showing the bad ones when they're like making a joke of it back in the day, it does influence your brain to think that they actually aren't rooting for me. Well, they are, because like I just said, if you don't get the talent, you've spent a lot of money for nothing. So we want to get our jobs done. So we want people to be great. And I think the more the talent can understand that we are all on this, you might be then working with me on a project later on. I might have auditioned you for something else, but we work together and we're on the same level. We are creating together. They're the performer, I'm maybe the creative, but we are all in that journey together, trying to get that across to the performers and making them feel that way. I think straight away relaxes their nerves. It's going to get the best out of them. And it's also going to make them feel valued, which I was saying.
And I think you're so right in that you never know what the opportunity is or where it's going to come from. And you never know who's looking at you that might be thinking about something else. So I saw an actor talking about auditioning, and he said it's just so important that you go in knowing how you want to do it and what your interpretation of the piece is, and worry as little as you can about what they want, because there's so many reasons why you might not fit.
Yeah.
But it's just important that you give the best version of yourself in the interpretation of the piece, because you never know what they might remember you for in the future, or what you might. And having been with you for the past couple of weeks, everywhere we've been, you've indirectly known people, or people have known you because of you being in these rooms, or vice versa.
Yeah. But I think also it's the thing of, the actor you're talking about, I agree with, where do your thing, because like you say, you might not be right for that casting, so that's that, but you might be, and if the team can see it's not quite right what you're doing, but you are on the line of the type we want, they'll direct you, they'll give you that information. They want you to be good, they'll only stop it there if they know that you're completely not the right person for that project. It's never a reflection on talent, it's never personal, it's often they're looking for someone to do what's in their brain.
Yeah. So we've got it. I think really useful to get a sense of the pressures and the perspective from your angle, and the client or the production company, or whoever you're casting for. From the auditionee's perspective, what are your recommendations in the modern climate? Like, give me some of like your top 5 do want to see, don't want to see. What grinds your gears? What are the obvious mistakes that people are making? And what are maybe some of the opportunities to make an impression or enhance your opportunity that people are missing?
What we want to see is who they are and their personality. I know that sounds so broad, but it really is true. Like, I think...
How long have I got in the room with you, Graeme, on the day?
Let's say it's a singing call and you only have like 3 minutes. Let's say it's even that.
So how do I give you a sense of me beyond the performance of the material?
Don't be shy about being yourself. If you come in, you don't need to be like a robot and think, oh, well, I'm told I need to put my music at the side. I need, just be who you are. If you're an upbeat, bubbly person, be that person. You don't need to change who you are for them, because then you're not necessarily going to gel with their team either, because as well as casting for talent and casting what you want, people also want to work with people that they resonate with and they like. So show who you are, because it might put you ahead of someone else, because they go, that person is interesting to me, they're exciting to work with. And being, again, what I want to see is them asking questions if they need to, like, it might not need any questions, but say there's direction given and they don't understand, just say, I don't quite understand, did you mean more like this? Be that person. It's fine. That shows you're intelligent, it shows you're smart, it shows that you've got something about you. If you are just like then there's, you might be really talented and you might get the job and be great, but you're not showing enough of what you want. Something I don't like seeing is when people are giving up before they've even started. Like, sometimes people are casting themselves, and I think there's a casting director for a reason. That's their job. Your job is the performer and the person interpreting the material. And I think sometimes people they're defeated before they've begun. And
is that through fear of failure? Do you think?
And it's that self-belief, and it's allowing yourself to embrace yourself and be who you are, and that's your talent, and that's your thing. And I think I get it. I totally see why someone would be maybe defeatist before they've begun. And I've been there. We've been through that situation. But knowing now what I know, I don't know why I ever did that as well. And that's why I think, just don't do that. Just, take choices, be bold, and it will pay off. It might not pay off that day, but you will find your people.
You never know what else. Absolutely, what else it could lead into. From a practical level, like what people wear, how they present themselves, their headshots, CVs. Like what are some just super basic do's and don'ts?
For me, I think you need to know what you're auditioning for and do a bit of research. It takes no time at all. Like, you look, whether it's for a book show, look into that, whether it's for entertainment, so whether it's something cruise ship, you just look at what the product is, who is going to be the target audience. So what are that casting team going to be looking for within the person they're casting? Like, what to wear is a really interesting one, because we often are led by what's in fashion and what's in the shops and what you like, or you've maybe seen a star wearing that in a magazine or whatever it might be, on Instagram. It has to showcase you, and you have to think about putting yourself in the position you're then going to be working in. So it doesn't mean change who you are, and it doesn't mean if you've got a certain style, you lose all of that style. We want to see that that's who you are, but you need to. I always say it's like going on a first date. You know, maybe you are someone that wouldn't be bothered by that, but I know most people on a first date, they wouldn't go dressed up to the nines and wear their tuxedo or ball gown, because that would be a little bit odd. But they are going to make a little bit of effort because they are meeting someone for the first time, and they might start a new relationship. So they're going to, you know, whatever they're going to do, but they're going to
show an understanding of the audience.
Yeah, and they are going to, for their first date, show themselves as their better self. And I think that's what you need to do for an audition. Think about you. And I often get asked, what's the perfect audition outfit? And I'm like, the one that looks best on you, that really highlights all the best bits of you and makes you pop. And yeah, and what's in line with the product. If you're like, let's say, a cruise line's a really good example. If you're working for like a luxury cruise line, you're likely going to be with a clientele that, you know, really look after themselves, and it's a little fancier. So maybe you need to present yourself a little fancier. It doesn't mean you have to be fancier. It means the way you dress and the output is matching that. You know, in this industry, the product is the performer. Now, if you're buying something like a tea brand and it's a little fancier, more expensive, maybe the packaging is going to be a bit fancier, even the way it's like the material they're using. And that is really transferable to being a performer. Package yourself for the customer you're selling yourself to.
What's your preferred tea brand, just out of interest?
Oh, I love any tea, but if it's bog standard every day, Yorkshire all the way.
All right, okay. I'm a PG Tips Pyramid guy.
Okay.
George, do you have a tea preference?
Yorkshire, I'm afraid.
Yorkshire, okay. Yorkshire 2-1. I'm happy with that, not a problem. I think that's really useful to hear in your perspective and just those practical tips for auditionees, because it can be a very self-conscious environment. I think fear of failure and people casting themselves, like you said, is a very real thing. And I think particularly with dance, it has its own kind of, dance auditions and dance studios has its own kind of culture and perception on social media in a way that actually vocal auditions don't really. And maybe it's because it's a more, I don't know, more visual medium, or it's more, but
yeah,
I can imagine there is a sense of people being really concerned about what they wear from a style and fashion perspective, maybe over sometimes the product or audience that they're.
Yeah, it's interesting when you just said, touching on where you said fear of missing out. That's a really important thing. I think that does happen a lot, where we augment what we want to actually do because we feel that we need to fit in and go, and that's, I would say you shouldn't be doing that. You should be embracing who you are. And, you know, like that time you fall over in the audition, you think that's a massive thing, and you are, you know, everyone's looking at you. You know, the reality is no one cares. No one cares you fell over. End of. Like, you know, they fell over, move on. But you're thinking about it for a whole week later. You've got to get over those situations and try things. If someone says like, oh, there's freestyle here, just try and let yourself go. You don't need to, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. How has the culture of the room changed? Like, it has. Like, I think over the past 20 years, it's changed significantly, both the rooms in which people are auditioned in and the way that products are managed and teams are managed. What's been your experience of that, and how have you had to adapt maybe with some of those cultural changes?
I think a positive about the way the rooms have changed is I think it feels quite friendly between people. I think like social media has connected people more, and, you know, the links between different colleges, for example, people know more people in different spaces. So there's a positive community, which I think is really amazing. And that, I think, makes people feel confident in their environment. And then they also might share, there's other auditions where years ago it didn't necessarily happen as much. People were a bit more secretive. Like,
right, okay. You know, so there's more community there, you think?
I think there is, because of, you know, different events that bring dancers and singers together and that. So I think that's a real positive. I think like another side though is, if I'm a negative, is I have never had so many people cancel an audition ever. As the years go on, it gets worse. It's kind of
as in let you know, or simply not turn up.
Both, but a lot of people cancel like the morning of, the night before, for reasons that I also need to be adapting with, because a lot of the time the reasons are they're working and they can't get time off, but they're finding out the night before. And with obviously the cost of living and that type of thing, there's that. Transport issues, like, you know, a lot of people don't live in London. Like back in the day, it was kind of like, well, that's where the hub is, and it still is like that. But people adapt differently. Like, I know a lot of performers are now living in Manchester or up north. That makes me have to schedule my audition day to as best as I can. It's not possible, but if I'm able to accommodate someone's audition later in the day to help their travel, I need to do that, because I am learning from the feedback of cancellations. If I'm giving people in Scotland the first thing in the morning audition, they're going to cancel. Or, you know, I do think a performer needs to take responsibility for that. And if you're going to, like, I don't live in London, but I need to then, that's my choice. And if I need to be at an event or need to be somewhere, I have to find my way into London for that time. If I have to be there for 9 o'clock, I have to either go the night before or pay expensive train to get there. That is my choice, because I did that. And I think that is something that performers need to understand, but it has changed the demographic of the room in that sense of things. Also, leaving early, there's a lot of people, I need to go by 5. Well, the audition's till 6. Well, I need to go at 5. Okay, but we obviously want the talent and we want to do that. So there is definitely changes in that. There's definitely changes in audition outfits.
Because 20 years ago, that wouldn't have cut it.
No.
They would have said, well, you can go at 5.
Yeah.
You won't be hearing from us.
Yeah.
I wonder, but the world is changing, culture is changing, generationally, there of course are shifts, and there are some real practical challenges for people as well. What would your recommendation be to clients when they are building audition days or campaigns, in order to, is it making sure that you have multi-regional castings, or what would your advice be there?
I think it depends what the work is for. But yeah, if there's opportunity to have different cities, then that could be of help. I also know that's a budget thing as well, because it makes it more expensive. I think it's being mindful of how do we allow this to be as accessible as possible, and whether that be it's in 2 halves, that there's a morning session, afternoon session, that maybe helps that situation. It might be a situation that you need to be there all day, but how do we get the best out of those people? I think that's not only in terms of planning your audition, it's also in the reach of how you meet the talent too. Like, it was always very directly on certain casting sites or through your agent. That was how you got work. Or like the stage newspaper was how you found work.
Yeah.
So in some ways it was, quotation marks, easier to find work, because if there was a job, it was going to be there. There wasn't loads of outlets. Now there's so much social media, different platforms, different things. How do we target the audience to give everyone the equal opportunity? And I think from my side in casting, I need to not just go, well, it's only going to be on that page, because like I said, the culture has changed and the demographic and landscape has changed. We need to adapt and find other ways of finding the talent to be at the audition.
You've mentioned there accessibility and equal opportunities. How is the industry evolving in that respect? Is it doing it? Is it genuine? Is it genuinely becoming more diverse and accessible? And
I would say we've seen real positive change for certain diversity over the last 5 to 10 years, and that's amazing. I think there's still a lot more that can be done. I don't think we go, oh, well, that's now being explored, so that's the end of it. I think there's always time and to have a conversation about inclusion, diversity, and I think we should always be doing it regularly and reassessing where we are right now and how we can keep growing and moving forward. That's an important thing. I think there is more understanding of equal opportunities and how we integrate that into, whether that be in a rehearsal room or an audition room or whatever it might be. I think, like I say, all diversities need to be still worked on. I think there's a lot of work to be done. However, I do think things that are more invisible often are overlooked. Like even myself, like I have when I speak, I often have a stammer. I was born with a stammer, and it's something I'm passionate about trying to grow and integrate within the industry we're in, because I feel there's tiny pockets of inclusion of that and understanding that that is actually diversity, but I find it's something that's massively overlooked, and that's both within what we see on a stage, what we do in a room, how we embrace that into a room. And I'm mindful of learning as much as I can about other diversities because of my own experience. It's things like, as a stammerer, if you're going to a singing audition or any audition, anything, but singing is a really big one because you walk in the room and you have to present your music to the pianist. That is the system of how it works. Now, if you have trouble with communicating fluently, someone, if they don't understand that or have had experience of that, would potentially, I'm not saying be rude, but not react with it being embraced, that is going to put that performer in a situation where they haven't even started the audition yet and they've already now feel, oh, like I wasn't able to communicate how I want to. And that's going to put them on the back foot then to then perform. And I think with stammering, I'm passionate that it's just a different way of speaking and it just takes a bit more time and it's a different rhythm. Now, our whole industry is about rhythm. In dance, it's different rhythms. Music's different time signatures. It changes. Why can it be embraced and be fine for that? But actually, the person delivering. And for me too, it's that thing of I can speak like I am now pretty fluently in a work setting, it up and down, but I can get through my work absolutely fine with my situation. But there is times it comes in, and if people aren't educated and understand that, then there's going to be situations where people might feel, oh, they're not the right person for the role or to do it, when actually they just need that extra couple of seconds to say what they need to say. And it's interesting seeing the evolution of things. Like back in the day, like on the news, you would never have someone that had an accent, a regional accent. They would have to all speak with received pronunciation, and that's what it would be. We've seen that change now. We've learned that
there was a period in with drama schools where 150 students would arrive with a diverse cross section of accents, and they would all leave with the same accent. And that's changed again massively in the past 15 years, where now people are really seeking out authentic regional accents. We don't want somebody who went to Eton trying to portray somebody who is from Huddersfield.
We like the difference. We like to hear the different texture of the accent, and I think that's the same within the rhythm of something's being said. And there has been pockets more recently where I've, even on TV, like in reality TV, I've seen it's creeping in, but it's took 20 odd years to start integrating those things. And it's like, yes, they might have done it once, but it's having that constant representation, because otherwise you get into a situation where we did it once, we've done that now. That is not growing diversity. And I think I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about trying to have that understood, and unless I think all types of people should be represented in a team and in a show or whatever you're watching. Like the product needs to represent that, and I feel that because someone watching in should feel like they're inspired by something they're seeing. And we've seen the effects of that. We've seen that with certain diversities where, wow, more people are wanting to go into this industry because they've seen whoever represent that diversity on a massive platform, and it's inspired that person to then want to do it. If you're not seeing that, like I know with like stammering, because it affects communication, oh, well, this is a communication relationship-driven industry. Well, maybe it's not for you, or maybe it is if you try and change it. And it's like, it's difficult. And I think it's also misunderstood reasons why it happens. Oh, you're stammering because you're nervous. Oh, you're stammering because, well, no, nervousness does affect it. Tiredness affects it. But I can be in my best state on my holiday, feeling great, and I can still stammer because it's the way the brain works.
Isn't it interesting as well in terms of representation that over the years, I guess at times people will have seen success as hiding it, or because it might have been perceived or explained to them as a disadvantage or potentially a hindrance. So then there's a need to feel like they're covering or it's not showing. Where actually, you just put it really well. Like, success is people seeing themselves in people and thinking, "Oh, I can do that. There is room for me in that space, and it's not a hindrance or a boundary." What would your advice be, going back to you had the analogy of walking into the pianist and giving them your music. What is your advice to the Graeme going into that audition and Graeme sat at the piano in that situation? How would you advise people to better?
I think auditionees just need to be transparent about who they are and what they do. I think if people know, then they are going to try and make someone feel included and, given their time, the most. So I know from my side of casting, I want to start, and it's something that I want to grow, having that conversation before the audition about if you feel you need additional support or there's something you want to share, please let us know. And it would be private and confidential, but for the team to know who is coming in the room so they're able to react and integrate them as they should, And as I think as a creative in a room, even if you didn't know that, you just need to be more educated all the time. And I learn all the time with new people I meet. And I think the more you can embrace difference, the more you're going to be just a better person and be able to allow that full integration. And I think there's a lot of work to be done for all areas. I know for my diversity, I'm obviously really passionate about that, and I also don't see it regularly enough. And I think that mindset of when you're saying you should hide things, that's to be successful. It's interesting you say it, because I was talking to
well, I'm not saying you should, to be clear, but I'm saying some people feel
but
that
also back in the day, it was that kind of mentality. Even myself, like you shouldn't be telling people you have that because it might affect your work. I don't agree with that philosophy, and even more so in today's world. But that was kind of the training system, how it should be. When you, I was talking to a fellow stammerer who's an actor, and we were looking at online casting profiles and people's CVs online, and I could only find on a database of thousands of people 5 people that said they stammered in our industry. Now, I could name another 10 who are super successful, and it's interesting seeing people not divulging their difference and diversity, but that could be for many reasons, and maybe it's their confidence with it, whatever. Maybe it might be an experience that they've had or the way they've been trained to be told to get rid of it or change it or have therapy and whatever it might be. And everyone's got their own way of, and own way of having decisions in their own mind. But that was really interesting to both of us. Like, wow, and I do think we need to get out of that. And I think the work that's happened with neurodiversity and ADHD, and again, there's more to be done, but the more understanding the world has got to those conditions is proof. It's proof in the pudding that it's fine. The more you are yourself, the better. But it also takes the people on the other side of the table to learn and be able to. It's a two-way street. The performer needs to be open and transparent about it, but the team also need to be open to learn and educate themselves about it.
I had a really enjoyable and informative working experience with somebody we both know, Sean Fields, who very, very talented singer. We'll bleep your name out, Sean, if you don't want me to say it. But he very, very talented singer. But we also presented a Nickelodeon-style kids show together as co-presenters, and we were very different in style and character, but worked really well. We had a great chemistry as a pairing. And when I first met Sean, he was very focused, and it was very important to him that he was a stammerer, and it was very important to him that the structure of what we did was meticulous, and that we did everything in a chronological order, and that's how he liked to work, which for me, I kind of liked to be more spontaneous and to be a little bit more, and it, to begin with, it was a bit of a learning for me to understand what he needed to make him feel comfortable on stage. But once we honed that relationship and I listened and learned about him more, we developed a very organic and authentic relationship where actually we could be super spontaneous together and be a great duo. But it was because I understood how he could be himself and what that took, and we built that relationship.
Yeah.
But it was a learning for me. I hadn't been in that situation before, and I was perhaps ignorant to a few things. But he was a great teacher and ambassador, and also somebody that kind of wore it on his sleeve a little bit, and as you should.
And I think there's all that element of it we spoke about, but I also think to move forward we need to be integrating all diversities within the art as well into the work. And I think I have had conversations with producers and people that are in those positions to create those type of things, and I know there's lots of interest. I think a lot of the time they find it hard to fully integrate it unless it's the storyline. So that character needs to have a stammer because we're telling
like it has to be a big focus.
And that's fine. That's an area of like the King's Speech is a good example of that. It's a really good piece of work, really good film. It's really it's excellent.
But actually success is one of the background characters just happens to have it, and it's not a novelty or a feature or a topical temporary focus.
Of course. Or if it's in like a television program, the person serving them at the bar just stammers with them and no one comments on it. It's just the way they speak. The way they speak is the key line there. It's just a different way of speaking, and we really need to get that going. But listen, I'm passionate about my diversity, but I'm also passionate about others as well. And I think the whole world just needs to keep evolving to become as diverse as possible and open to integrating all different types of people within the work we do.
You are an incredible ambassador for that, and I think wrapping that segment up neatly, I would encourage anybody to go and read Graeme's article in the Stage magazine online, and we'll drop a link to that just below or in the bio or somewhere like around. Okay, we've reached the more formulaic final act of the interview, where we cover some of our regular questions. And our first is Message and a Bottle, which is a regular feature that we do where we treat our guests to a drink of their choice in exchange for answering a question from a friend or an acquaintance. What is your drink of choice?
What, alcoholic or not alcoholic?
Alcoholic, yeah.
There's too many. I love a gin and tonic.
Okay.
Good choice, I think.
All right. Well, I'll treat you to a gin and tonic in the near future. Also, can I say we've got an interview with Kelly Shirley coming up in the next week or two, who we had a very funny drinking experience with that I will refer to in her interview. So your message and a bottle comes from Joe Gibb. Somebody that you've worked with and are familiar with, a very talented performer in her own right. Joe asked, how do you cover your spots in rehearsals?
Oh my God, she needs, she's saying that because there's a really funny story. We worked together and I had this huge spot on my chin. It was huge and it lasted. I get that every so often and it just won't go away. Anyway, I was having loads of photos. When you're in a cast, it's a photo, and I thought it's completely the wrong time to having photos. So there was this day we had a glass, and I was like on the picture, and everyone was like that. But it was to cover my spot, and Jo has never lived it down. She even zoomed in on it multiple times and made a joke. And then my spot came back a few weeks ago, and she was finding it hysterical, putting emojis over my spot on the photo. So yeah, that was a really funny story, and I'll always think of my spots when I think of Joe Gibb.
There you go, Joe. Nice link. By the way, Joe, if you have any photos you want to send in of Graeme, we can add them to the stories. So a couple of our standard questions now. What in your career and life today is the best piece of advice that you've never been given? So something you've had to learn off your own back.
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say it is to believe it's all going to work out, and that you need to trust the process, because I know people said similar to that, but until I'm now doing it, you need to trust the process. And like I said earlier about being patient and waiting for things, I never necessarily got that directly, and I think that is the biggest thing I need to remember.
Okay, useful. And what about mistakes? Is there a useful mistake that you've made, or something you've learnt the hard way?
Again, a useful mistake, I would say, is not to put as much pressure on myself. because I
Okay.
used to put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right, to be this, to be that, to finish this. And I realized, actually, you just need to do your thing well and it'll all be fine.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Okay. We've come to your senses. What do you do to relax? You work in a very high pressure, time sensitive, deadline oriented industry. When you need to take 5, is there a particular art form or medium or entertainment or sensory experience that you turn to or enjoy?
There's lots of things, but I think my big thing is just relaxing at home. I think that is so important. Home is my happy place. You're always away on the road doing something. So, you know, and if I am away, to have them 5 minutes of time is maybe to ring home and just have a chat, and it makes you feel like you're connected with that person.
Which, can I say, I relate to that. And I think as you get older, you appreciate being home a little bit more, particularly when you travel. But you are very disciplined with your calling homes, I have to say.
I am.
Like clockwork.
I make sure I do it. But I also love a hot bath as well. I love a bath.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. How is the industry changing? How do you see it changing? And if you had a magic wand, how would you like to see it changing more?
I think it's changing in a way that everything is fusing more, and everywhere I work's wanting to up their products. So that's more opportunity for performers and better products for audiences to watch. So that's really positive. If I had a magic wand, I would want it to be all the mindset we have of today, where we are inclusive, we're understanding, we talk more about how we feel and embrace ourselves, but still with the discipline of what we got trained and taught back in the olden days. Because I think that's discipline is such a huge part of our business, and it's the essence of it. And I think, you know, the needle sometimes swings a little bit too far the other way. So my magic wand would make the needle swing into the middle.
Having just been in the room with you for a month or so and seen how you work, I think you master the balance of that really neatly, between allowing people to be comfortable, to feel themselves, to feel seen, and managing the discipline and the strictness when it needs it. And it generates respect. People respect that as well. Yeah. People don't need to be your busy mate in that room. We're trying to achieve the best standard that we can in everybody's interest. What advice would you give to yourself?
Now. Oh, the advice I'd give to myself is to not allow myself to get overwhelmed. I don't necessarily, because I tell myself that advice. I go, it'll all work out. Even when I'm at my busiest, the job always gets done. I do it well. I'm a firm believer of I can work for multiple clients, but when I'm working for that client, my energy's on that client.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in a room for whoever, I'm not then jumping on a load of calls with other people or doing this, or, you know, I am with that person, and my advice is to keep being like that. I think that's when people really respect you, and they go, wow, you're multifaceted, you work for loads of different people, but you also deliver at the full amount that I've wanted, you know. And I think, I think the advice is to never let yourself get overwhelmed by how much work you have, because you're going to look back one day and go, I was so grateful I had all that work. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that you've just said with the clients, making people feel like they're the only person in the room is so important.
You have to do that,
and it's what they're paying for. Yeah. But also, as we've mentioned several times, it's about relationships, and it's about how they felt working with you.
I think if you're not good at that skill, you should only work for one person. If you can't, you know, spin many plates, it's definitely a skill. And those that do it, I've chatted to before, and you're like the same. Like, you know, you're going. You master that. If you're good at it, work for lots of people. If you're not, and you feel like your work slips because you're spinning too many, don't. Just work for that one person.
I think that's really useful. And there's pros and cons to both. Yeah. I think that's useful advice. Do you have a question for me, Graeme?
Question for you. My question for you is, if you were to go back 20 years, what would you do differently?
I think taking a leaf out of your book with the audition room and your advice is, I would take more risks. I think. Yeah. and I would be less concerned about what others were doing. I wouldn't suffer by comparison or give a shit about that as much. As you get, oddly at drama school, I found it quite an inhibiting culture where you were quite self-conscious and mindful of what people were doing and what the style of the day was, or so what I would say to myself, again, quoting, like, what's the worst that can happen? This is your chance, go for it. And I think I have been bold and I have taken risks and I've been resilient through periods that other people would duck out of the industry and not. But I think always take more risks. Back yourself.
I think it's always easier said than done, and even though I say advice all the time now, I know it's easier said than done, and I know experience allows you to understand that more. But I do think I resonate with what you say. One thing I would change is just doing more of what I say now. Earlier on, but it's.
But that's getting on, isn't it? That's
getting
on
older.
in retrospect.
Getting older,
which you keep reminding me we're doing. I'm really passionate about. I don't like to feel I have regrets. I'm more than happy with making lots of mistakes, because a mistake is something that I can learn from and think, well, I won't do that again, or I know why that happened, or here's the learning from that I can take. But yeah, you get wiser as you get on.
You do.
And the final question that I ask everybody as we conclude is, who should I interview next? Who could you think of that that might be a great interview?
I don't know. I think...
Well, I did prep you on this question, so you should.
I didn't think enough. No, I think what's interesting now is the shift of people's opinions on work, then put it on social media. So, for example, someone like Amber Davis is a good example. Like, she has her own podcast, but being in this type of setting is really interesting because she's someone that's, she went through college. Yes, she went on Love Island and did that world, but her passion was always performance and theatre, and she's doing that now and she's been really successful. But a lot of the backlash, because she has been on something like Love Island, is really not nice. And I think that social media world and the online hate and stuff that happens now is a completely new element of our industry, and how someone of her profile having opportunities like being on Dance Can Ice and Strictly Come Dancing, how exciting that must be for her. I'm assuming when she got the call, she's like, oh my God, I'm going to be on Strictly. I've watched it all these years and now I'm going to be on The Stars. And then to get all these great comments from the judges and everyone, but on the outside, so many people writing the most horrible things for absolutely no reason. And they don't really think that. They're just saying it because it's something to say. And how she does vocalize on her social media about that sometimes, but in this setting, how she would maybe speak to herself 10 years ago before all this happened about how she would prep herself for that. And she shouldn't have to prep herself for that. But the point being is, like we said, the world and industry has changed. So how she would maybe prep herself earlier than it now happening on top of her.
Yeah, which I think is increasingly relevant for people who have on stage and online existences. So Amber, great suggestion. Graeme, I knew that you would be fascinating and insightful today. I think particularly for people literally wanting to enter the industry through the audition room. It's been a really useful and interesting interview. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've been getting notes from Graeme Pickering. We'll see you next time.